I used to hate hustle culture. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to work for 12 or more hours a day. And I remember I was out with some friends and one of them asked me what job I want in the future. And I said to them, it doesn't really matter what job I eventually end up with. I just want a job where I can work as few hours as possible so that I can have more free time to enjoy my life. And I want to be earning just enough money so that I can enjoy my hobbies, go out and do things, but not be a slave to my job. So that was 8 years ago. How did that turn out? Well, now I can quite easily work for 15 hours a day from the moment I wake up to the time I go to bed at night. In fact, I want to do that. I want to work all week, even through the weekends, because I love what I do. I love my job and I wouldn't have it any other way. So what happened that made me turn from hating hustle culture to loving hustle culture? From wanting to work the absolute minimum I can get away with to now wanting to work the absolute maximum I can get away with. And I'll explain more about what triggered that transition later on in the video, but first it's important that we understand what hustle culture is and why it's not for everyone. And I feel as this channel for more than 4 years was purely a study motivational channel that throughout pretty much all of my videos, I'm essentially promoting this idea of hustle culture. I feel like I should address this issue. On my channel I have videos titled A-grade students are hungry for success, just keep studying and be the hardest worker in the room. So I personally have been pushing this message of hustle culture throughout the entire channel. Because the number one issue with the audience of my channel, the number one reason why you're watching my videos, is because my viewers have problems with procrastination. They're struggling to study and achieve strong grades as a direct result of procrastination. And so yes, I do want my viewers to push through that feeling of not wanting to study and just go and study. And so my videos have been designed and created in order to address the issue of procrastination. Now, the reason why hustle culture is so controversial is actually very simple, and it's about priorities. And problems arise when you prioritize your work or your studying higher than your happiness and higher than your health. That's when hustle culture becomes a problem. So for example, if you've been studying for 10 hours that day, you're mentally and physically exhausted because you've only been getting 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. And then you turn on YouTube to get a bit more motivation to push yourself that bit further, and you watch one of my videos. And you just keep going at the detriment of your mental and physical health. Now that right there is the problem. And it's also a major reason why I transitioned from making purely motivation videos to talking head study advice type videos, exactly like this one, because it's very difficult in a motivational video to explain that you need to get enough sleep, that you need to eat well, that you need to manage your time well so you're not getting too stressed. It's very difficult to get that message across in the context of a motivational video. In every one of my recent study motivation videos, I do have a message in the description of each video explaining that happiness and health should be an absolute priority over any studying, but it's just difficult to incorporate that message into the video itself. And so as I said, it's a big reason why I pivoted to these talking head study advice videos, because I can explain myself a lot more effectively. I can elaborate and expand on things which my previous study motivation videos just couldn't. The message for my study motivation videos was basically study harder. And it's like, well, okay, now what? But now I can go over how you study harder, how you study smarter, how you can avoid burnout, how you can make your studying almost completely stress-free. I feel like most people are in 2 camps. The camp that I used to be in, where we live for the weekends and work is just a necessary thing we have to do to survive. And the second camp, where you're working all day, every day, because you love what you do, you're passionate about what you do. And you get as much enjoyment from working as you do from hanging out with friends or going to the bar for a drink. So I'm sat firmly in the second camp, where I love hustle culture, but I'm in that second camp because I want to be there, and I really can't overemphasize that. The problems occur, and this is why hustle culture is so controversial. Problems arise when someone is in that second camp but they don't want to be there. They're sucked into this idea of hustle culture and working 14, 15, 16 hours a day, but they don't want to. And maybe they're working at a prestigious investment banking firm and it's just expected of them to be working 16 hours a day. There's a huge difference between working 80 hours a week because you genuinely want to, and working 80 hours a week because you have to. So just last week there was an article on the BBC News reporting that first-year bankers at investment bank Goldman Sachs are threatening to quit because they are averaging 95 hours of work a week and sleep just 5 hours a night. Their personal relationships also suffered, as did their physical and mental health. And that right there is a textbook example of toxic productivity, where the first-year bankers are being pressured into working 95 hours a week, but they don't want to, and as a result it's having a massive detrimental effect on their lives. So they're in some ways being forced into this idea of hustle culture. So I think that we can all agree that work ethic is a foundational requirement for success. If you want to be successful, then you need to work hard and you need to push yourself. But how do you do that without falling into this trap of toxic productivity? And to answer that, let's go back 8 years, when at the time hustle culture to me was something I really didn't want to get involved with. And looking back at it now, it's because I had, at least in my opinion, an unhealthy relationship with work. At the time my job was stacking shelves at a supermarket for 8 hours a day, and for me, there's only so much enjoyment I can get from putting items on a shelf ready for the customer to buy. It wasn't until I started my own business and I started to work for myself that I found passion in my work. Because I was then working for myself, working on things that I wanted to make, working on things that I wanted to work on. And I found my passion in business, in having a positive impact on people's lives at scale. And suddenly work just stopped feeling like work. And as the saying goes, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. So the idea of hustle culture, I'll be honest with you, for me personally, I love it and I wouldn't have it any other way, but there are 3 main things that I need to keep in mind, but also you need to keep in mind too. And firstly, your mental and physical health should always be prioritized over everything. I think our health is something that, as a society, is often overlooked and we just don't give it the respect it deserves. Whatever we want to achieve in life, whether it's to achieve huge success in whatever way you define the term success, or whether it's just being the best mother or father or the best son or daughter you can possibly be, having our health is a fundamental requirement in order to achieve anything in life. So that should be your first priority. The second thing you need to keep in mind is that your happiness should be prioritized. If you're working 12 hours a day but you hate your job and you're living for the weekends and you're just not happy, then what's the point? A lot of people are trapped in this idea of hustle culture and they're working like crazy, but it's making them miserable. And in that case, I'd suggest finding work that you actually want to do, that you're passionate about, because it really is important that if you're spending 8, 9, 10 hours every day doing it, then you're going to want to enjoy it.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true. And the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, if you're not having fun doing it and you don't really love it, you're gonna give up.
And thirdly, this is really important, the hustle culture is not for everyone. And I personally don't like having too much free time. I need to be kept busy, I need to be doing things to stay happy. But maybe you're not like that. Maybe you work a 9-to-5 office job that pays the bills and you don't actually mind your job and you can go home on an evening and spend time with your family, and you have Saturday and Sunday off where you can spend more time with your family and go out with friends and pursue hobbies. And if that's what makes you happy, then more power to you, keep doing that. And if you're a student and you don't like hustle culture and you don't want to study hard, then you need to learn how to study smart. That's the absolute minimum. You should at least learn how to study smart. Unfortunately for you, I made a video on how I study less while learning more, so how I study smarter, not necessarily harder. There are a lot of more advanced study tips that I go through in that video to make your studying and the learning process more efficient. You can click on the video on the screen and I'll see you over there.